out half their days. And since Jesus did not live out half his days, what can we conclude? M. Isaiah 53:10 also says, quote, "The pleasure of the Lord shall prosper in his hand." Jesus has come and gone, yet the world that God desires, the pleasure of the Lord, has never come to pass. And finally, Isaiah 53:12 says, quote, "I will divide him a portion with the great, and he shall divide the spoil with the strong." Unquote. When did Jesus ever divide a portion with the great? Jesus divides spoils? Would a perfectly good being divide spoils? And where does Scripture say Jesus plundered or divided spoils with the strong? In addition, how can the verse imply that Jesus is not strong? John 17:2 says he was given power over all flesh. That's pretty strong. To shorten a long story, more than enough evidence exists to prove that the most important messianic prophecy of all, the 53rd chapter of Isaiah, does not pertain to Jesus. On page 33 in his work, Siegel wisely injects the following related important difficulty. Quote, in chapter 11, Isaiah gives us an insight into the Messianic age. Speaking of the Messiah, Isaiah states in the opening verse, quote, "There shall come forth a shoot out of the stock of Jesse," and Jesse is David's father, "and a branch out of his roots shall bear fruit." Unquote. When the prophet describes the dynamic appearance, and this is Siegel talking, describes the dynamic appearance of the Messiah as a shoot out of the stock of Jesse, he is portraying the latter's inglorious nature. He is portraying the latter's glorious nature from its very inception, from its beginning. This glowing portrayal provides a glaring contrast to the one in Isaiah 53:1-2, where the suffering servant, whom the missionaries also identify as Jesus, is portrayed in somber terms. Since both prophecies of Isaiah, that is, that in 11:1, which describes him entering the world as a high and mighty king, and the one in 53:1-2, which describes him coming into the world as a suffering servant, since both prophecies are applied to Jesus, we are faced with an irreconcilable contradiction, because the two accounts stand in stark contrast to one another. In simple terms, what Siegel is saying, he's asking did Jesus come, or was he to come as a high and mighty king to rule, or as a suffering servant? Siegel continues, "It takes a feat of missionary exegetical acrobatics to harmonize these two prophecies so as to make them appear to be applicable to one individual. Missionaries attempt to solve this problem by claiming that Jesus appeared the first time to provide a means of salvation for mankind. Of course, that's the suffering servant. Whereas in the second coming, he will come to judge and rule the world. This, however, is simply not in accord with Isaiah's prophetic message. The Messiah is not portrayed as part of a triune Godhead returning to earth as judge and king. Missionaries cannot legitimately dismember the book of Isaiah in order to choose those verses which they believe to have been fulfilled in the first coming, and then leave the remainder to be fulfilled during the second coming." Unquote, Siegel. Siegel is utterly correct when he says that Christians can't possibly claim to be fair scholars when they pick and choose the verses they wish to apply to Jesus at a time and place of their choosing. It is very important, indeed crucial, to realize that critics of the Bible, such as myself, are often accused of taking verses out of context when that is precisely what biblicists have done in abundance with the Old Testament. As can be clearly seen from what we have discussed so far, and that which is to follow in our next and final program on Messianic prophecies, biblicists have not hesitated to twist, distort, and pervert Scripture whenever they felt the need. We'd like to conclude today by reading a critical letter from Oak Lawn, Illinois. The writer says, quote, I'd like to know also how long you've been doing what you're doing. Do you repeat the same materials in your issues after you have once degraded the Bible? Is there a limit? Unquote. In response to this, I said, we have spent over 13 years exposing the incredible number of problems in the Bible. We try to have as little repetition of material as is possible, and have created what is probably the most comprehensive refutation of the Bible available in the English-speaking world, if not the entire world. I object to your implication that the Bible is worthy of respect and our endeavors are less than honorable. We provide facts, thousands of facts, not degradation. If people conclude from our mountain of data that the Bible has been degraded, that's their own conclusion based upon their evaluation of our evidence. But please don't impugn our motives because of what the evidence leads you to surmise. Degradation arises from your conclusions based upon our facts, evidence, proof, and logic, not our intentions. Then again, perhaps you just used the word degraded, carrying unintended baggage. In that case, just ignore our catcall. That completes our presentation. And please join us later for the 37th edition of Biblical Errancy Commentary, when we'll continue showing why the Bible is nothing more than the flawed composition of some fallible human beings. Thank you for listening.